So a lot of people have been weighing in about Avowed and what it looked like. I already reacted to a video from Matty Plays where he essentially argued that the CG trailer was not supposed to be sort of indicating what the game was going to look like because many people saw the gameplay at the Xbox Game Showcase in 2023 and essentially said this looks like a completely different game. It looked like we were going to get something that was more realistic or more, like a next-gen Skyrim. And so he was basically defending it and saying that's not really what we should have expected from the CG trailer. Now, I obviously didn't agree with Matty and did the reaction video. It was a good video. I appreciate his take. I just didn't see eye to eye. Now, in the wake of that, more and more people have been weighing in about the game and what it looks like. And we have an article from The Gamer that says, Avowed is not in alpha yet and graphics will be refined. Now, before we look at the article, I just really want to continue to stress, we also recently did an article about, hey, we reacted to an article about stop talking about Fable, stop talking about games super early. And something that I said about the Xbox Showcase in 2022, as well as in 2023, I continue to get the vibe and the feeling that Xbox and Microsoft kind of speak out of turn sometimes, or they force games to come to the public well before they should. They did this with Hellblade 2. I argued that they did that with Fable, and now I feel like they're doing that with Avowed. You brought this thing out. You talked about it way too early. You showed the CG trailer. Now, obviously, you feel a pressure to update people on the game and show gameplay, and you're showing gameplay of a game that's not even in alpha yet. So what are we looking at? A technical test? I don't know. Like, what's the purpose? What's the point in showing something in this raw of a state? Now, the silver lining here, the good thing you could say is that, hey, we showed this game early and it'll only get better with time. Like, the graphics will improve. And while that may be true, I still have to question the wisdom of showing things this far out or in this rough of a state, especially if we're going to have such significant changes. If it's not going to look like the CG trailer, then why did the CG trailer look the way that it did? It looked like a player holding, a sword and had a spell in their hand. And now we're seeing gameplay that apparently is also not going to be what the game will look like. So why is it being shown? What's the purpose? So I want to look at this article. I want to see what they have to say and kind of react to it, because the continued shift in marketing that I want to support is shorter marketing windows, kind of like what they did with Armored Core 6. We heard about it, and it's coming out within the year that we heard about it, within the year that we saw it. And I think more and more companies are going to lean toward that because you can spend less on marketing, and it maybe is more effective and actually gets people more excited. So let's take a look at this article. It says here, Avowed is not in alpha yet. Graphics will be refined. Don't be too worried about Avowed, the graphics. So this almost concedes some of what a lot of us were saying. This doesn't necessarily push back against Matty Plays video, but it definitely is sort of vindicating to those of us that thought it just didn't look very good. I thought that the game looked fun. It certainly didn't look like a next-gen game, which is continuing that question and that sort of inquiry about when are we going to see true next-gen performance out of the Xbox Series X. Avowed doesn't look like a game that's going to push that envelope, and Starfield's going to try, but apparently too much because you're going to have to cap everything at 30. So I want to see what they have to say here, because they're seemingly admitting that it didn't look very good since we saw something pre-alpha. So a developer at Obsidian has confirmed that Avowed isn't even in its alpha state yet and that the game will be refined in various ways before launch. Last week at Xbox Summer Showcase, we finally get another look at Obsidian's Avowed 3 years after its initial reveal trailer. Although our first look at the game painted it as Obsidian's take on Skyrim, the gameplay trailer and subsequent interviews confirmed that its scale had been reduced and the focus was moved to RPG elements instead of a big open world. So this actually, I think, is a slight repudiation of what Matty was really driving. The CG trailer should not have set any expectations. I think it was setting expectations. It did seem like it was going to be more of a Skyrim, more of an open world, more serious game. And they're claiming right here that scale has been reduced and the focus moved to RPG elements. And so there was clearly a switch and a change. And I think you can see that from the CG trailer to the gameplay trailer. I do. I think this is a very soft refutation of what Matty argued in his video. It also has a different art style than when we saw it in the reveal trailer, looking more in line with the Outer Worlds than the photorealistic look of the original that was originally teased. And many people have said, in agreement with Maddie, I had people leaving comments saying that a CG trailer should not set art style expectations. Then what's the point? If it's just a CG trailer to announce, that's fine. I think doing that every once in a while is okay. I think they could have done that with Indiana Jones. I was okay when they did it with Wolverine, right? It's like, that's fine. We know who Indiana Jones is. We know who Wolverine is. I don't think those CG trailers belong at showcases. I think you're far better off using those as announcements and then bring gameplay to the showcases. That's my own personal opinion, because the root word in showcase is show. You're supposed to show me something, not announce. Just a bunch of announcements and a bunch of CG trailers is kind of annoying. So I actually think that even here, we're having a fair case made that CG trailers are sort of setting the tone and the art style. And it's funny that a lot of people that defended the Avowed trailer are also claiming that, oh, well, Fable was gameplay, even though it was all in-game or in-engine. Is that supposed to set the tone and the art style? Or are we allowed to watch that and conclude that that's what the game should look like? What if the gameplay doesn't end up looking like what we saw in the Fable trailer? Are we allowed to be upset about that? When are we allowed to have our expectations set by these trailers? Are they all pointless until the game's in our hands? I think a lot of people are too quick to hand wave and defend some of the way that these trailers and announcements have been handled. On both sides, by the way, I did not like all the CG trailers at the PlayStation Showcase either. I said, listen, it's a showcase. Show me something. I have no idea what some of those games are at the PlayStation Showcase, and until I go read in a blog post what kind of game that it is. As you can imagine, this new look and revised direction disappointed a few players, with some complaining about the game's new visuals and suggesting that they had been downgraded from the original reveal, even though that seemed like more of a proof of concept trailer than anything else. So right here you can see the post. All I can say is the game has not entered alpha yet. Art will get refined in various ways. Lighting will change, though designs will not change, of course. They are what they are. So the way that the enemies and spaces have been designed, that's set, but you're going to see some art style probably changes and maybe some of the lighting improved, so it'll be more refined than what we saw. It was pretty rough. If you really slowed it down and examined some of it, there were frames missing in some of the animations. Like, it just looked kind of strange. If you're worried about Avowed's looks, it might be worth holding off until the game is closer to being released. As pointed out by Twitter user Claude Ryle, an Obsidian developer going by the name Brian DM recently shared some details about the game's development over on the RPG Codex forums, confirming that the game isn't even in its alpha state yet and that its visuals are going to be refined in various different ways. And just to echo it again here, I don't know why you're showing a gameplay trailer of a game that's not even in alpha yet. We've been here before. Don't show me a game that you don't even have in a vertical slice yet that's playable as like a demo. Like, this is basically tech test territory. Alpha, then beta, then launch, right? If you're pre-alpha, you're basically in early tech testing. I don't know why you would bring this to showcase. Briar DM said, all I can say is the game has not entered alpha. We already read this. They are what they are. Now, this is confirming that Avowed's graphics aren't final and that they'll be improved as the game's development continues. So if the graphics were really sort of tripping you up and you didn't think they looked very good, then they might get a little bit of polish. Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think we're going to see a dramatic transformation of this game based on what this person is saying. Lighting will change. Designs will not change, of course. They are what they are. He's both setting expectations, but also letting you know that, like, listen, I don't think this is going to be a dramatic change. I really, really don't. Because largely, if the designs are what they are and you're going to change some lighting and you're going to refine some things, that doesn't feel like an update. That doesn't feel like a change. You're not going to see a dramatic difference. Refinement just sounds like polish more than anything. Elsewhere in the forums, Briar DM also responded to a comment claiming that we'd be seeing the return of Bugsidian, saying, on previous projects, alpha periods were sometimes just a few months long. This is actually the longest we'll have for alpha or beta period for any Obsidian by a long shot, and it's good news. Oh, so he was responding to somebody claiming that we'd be seeing the return of Bugsidian, right? Bugthesda, Bugsidian, all these names that we come up with these companies because their games launch in buggy states. So he's pushing back against that and saying this is going to be the longest alpha beta period for any game. That's great. That really is. We've had similar comments about Starfield. Matt Booty saying that if it released right now, it would be the least buggy Bethesda game ever made. Just adding up the total number of bugs is quite a bit lower. They're combing over it as much as they can. Even Phil Spencer made it sound like as many people as possible are working QA for Starfield because it is such a massive game with so much potential for things to go wrong. That's not a slam. Games of that size, it's a little bit harder to discover and squash bugs because of the scope and the reach of the game. Feels like Obsidian, earned a similar track record here, and they're saying that, yeah, well, we're having a longer period of time for alpha and beta. All the more reason to not show the game right now. Just why? Again, the point being, it seems like Microsoft is more intent on bringing things to showcase as opposed to doing what's sort of appropriate. Like when they did that in 2022, they were more bent on showing a bunch of games, setting you up with this idea and this promise of these games are coming in the next 12 months, and then they don't make good on the promise. And here we are again, you're showing games well before you have any reason to, and this one in particular, you're looking at it's going to have a longer alpha beta period, and so is it coming next year? I don't know. I think that this is more proof of shorter marketing windows. Enable those devs to feel like they have the time to really polish their game and really put the work in. It's surprisingly positive comment considering all the negativity surrounding the game in the forum, but Briar DM also noted that the community is so toxic that no one can touch it with a 10-foot pole on official terms. So apparently the community is so bad that nobody wants to go in there and talk. That's actually not surprising. I'm not even gonna dispute that. The gaming community and gaming forums and Twitter have become pretty terrible. DM notes that he personally doesn't care about the negativity and sees the value in working with the community, but it's a reminder that these games are coming from actual people with feelings, and that it might be best to hold off on criticism and harsh words until the game is actually out. Well, I don't agree with this. I don't think we should hold off on criticism. If you're bringing a game to showcase and you're showing me gameplay and it looks dramatically different than what you showed me last time, do you understand the industry that you're in? Because that's a trope and a stereotype that gamers are tired of. We are tired of games degrading. We are tired of games changing, not being what we were promised. If you look at, the classic examples would be the first Watch Dogs or Anthem. These games that show us in-engine footage, in-game simulated footage, and then the game comes out and is nothing like what we were shown. So I think gamers have been conditioned, and maybe we're a little bit jaded, and we're just sort of exhausted with the classic marketing tropes from big video game companies of promising and wowing us and flashing lights in our eyes, and then when the game comes out, it looks like somebody tipped over a Christmas tree and it all fell on the ground. Like, what happened to the original game? What happened to the game that you showed us? So I actually don't agree with that. I don't think we should be holding off on criticism when game trailers are seemingly either fake or not really representative of the product, or dramatic downgrades can be measured and seen. I mean, that was one of the things people kind of celebrated about God of War Ragnarok, is when trailers came out later, the cinematics had been improved. The clothing details and environments had actually had everything raised up. And that's not surprising, right? As they develop, they can sometimes polish some of those scenes. So I'm not upset that Avowed looked bad and will potentially look better and have its artwork refined. I'm not against that. I'm against showing it when it's not really ready to be shown, or showing a CG trailer so far in advance that it simulates what the game might look like, and then the game doesn't end up looking like that. It's almost like you're making two mistakes, but just on different sides of the coin. And I do think Microsoft and other companies need to consider that. It continues to feel like Microsoft steps out of turn, speaks out of turn, forces games to show themselves to the market well before they should, and the final product will likely be so different that then people will take devs to task for that, and it's not really fair. If they're being forced to show us an incomplete product and something that's just not ready to be seen by the public, then that's on the marketing team and whoever thought that this trailer should be shown. That's not on the devs. As always, I want to know what you think. Leave a comment below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.